Welcome back to part 2 of the Christopher Paul Jones interview. Christopher is one of the most insightful and educated and wise minds I've met in this industry, and it's a really great privilege to introduce him again to you today. Thank you, Christopher. Okay, Christopher, tell us more about some interesting clients you've worked with.
Well, I think the interesting, some of the interesting ones as well is, as I say, all behaviour has a trigger point, a time in the past where you created a belief.
Yes.
I think one actually, away from phobias that sticks to mind is, I did some work with a girl who basically all her life believed she wasn't accepted, believed she didn't fit in and whatever. And I took her back to the trigger point.
Yes.
And it was something so simple. It was, she's 2 years, and she would have never thought this consciously. She's maybe 4 years old actually. But she was young and she was playing hide and seek, and they'd forgot to look for her. Oh. And in that moment, her mind went, I'm not valuable, no one cares.
Wow.
And she took that belief, and then as she went through her life, what happens is you filter your life to look for examples of whatever's true.
Yes.
So recently I've had to do something that I haven't done in a long while, which is, or ever, in fact, is DIY. I've never done DIY, I'm a brain guy, but I've actually had to do DIY, and it's been quite good to use my hands.
Yeah.
But now what happens is, whenever I walk around the house, I've noticed I'm looking at going, oh, what paint have they used? What fittings are on the window? Things I'd never ever thought of before, but suddenly come into my radar. Yeah. And I think the example they often use is, you buy a car, you buy a car and then you see it on the road all the time, because that's what you're filtering for. So what happens is, so what she'd done is her brain then, once she'd taken that belief that she wasn't good enough or worthy, her whole life she's looking for examples of why that's true. And that's what people do, same with phobias, with something like a fear of flying, they'll filter and look for all the examples of plane crashes and whatever. They'll ignore the safety statistics and more people die from mosquitoes and all those things. And they'll filter for the danger. They'll look for the danger. Going back to that story, just something like that, something so simple, but for whatever reason can go deep into the unconscious and affect people's decisions. So, another example of that is when it's unrelated as well, which it's when it gets bizarre. Like I say, often it's more often than not, flying phobia. Okay, they're 7 years old. Even if they don't remember it, they're 7 years old. They have a turbulent flight. They watch a movie where a plane crashes and it goes in deep, and then they link fear to it.
Yes.
But I had one client who had a phobia of trains, and she, again, those done everything, every kind of counselling, every kind of modern intervention, fast therapies, all these different types of change work. Nothing worked, and what it was, when I sort of did the hypnotic techniques, something she wasn't conscious of.
Yes.
When she was younger, she had been trying to escape a dangerous relationship, abusive relationship, and she sat on the train. As she's trying to escape this relationship, she's running that scenario in her mind of the pain, of the fear, and she's looking at the train, running the fear, looking at the train, and that creates the Pavlovian response, or what they call in NLP an anchor. And of course, all the therapists, well-meaning, would have just been focusing on, notice how relaxed you can be, or all these things. But that wasn't the trigger point. That wasn't the origin of it. And so sometimes they can be very straightforward, and sometimes they can be all sorts of different things that stack up. And like I say, smoking isn't just a bad habit. It's a way of meeting lots of needs. And in this case, with that fear, it was linking danger. It's like, I suddenly feel in danger. I suddenly feel scared. But it was nothing to do with trains at all. Nothing to do with safety. Nothing to do with anything. It was just to do with what the mind had linked to that past event.
Absolutely, that's it's amazing how we're not giving a user manual for our brain or our unconscious mind. We just sort of thrust into the world and
yeah. Well, and as I say, it's like all these programs are running in the background. All these beliefs you got from your parents, or you rebelled from your parents, or you took it. It's running the show. It's filtering your world. It's making you decide on what's possible and what's not, what can be done, on where to look for help. And and people we're not. It's amazing how little we learn at school. Yeah. All to use the analytical part. This part, the part that works things out and makes sense of the world. And unfortunately, there's this whole other part that's more powerful, but it just doesn't work in the same way. It just, as I said before, it just doesn't work on logic. It has a completely different way of making decisions, and it's when you can tap into that, when clients can tap into that, that's when magic happens, really.
Chris, could I ask you what would be the top 3 books that you could recommend people to who are just curious about becoming like you? What would you recommend? That would be the top 3 books on your reading list.
There's so many. It would depend on what are they looking to do. So whether they're looking to do coaching work, sort of more goal setting, sort of future based, whether they're looking to do more stuff in the now, mindfulness, getting people to be comfortable, whether they're looking to delve into the past and change.
You obviously read across the board in.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're all useful. They're all, and I think that's the thing actually. And again, I would be before.
That's why you're successful. You're more broad range than probably someone who's just hypnosis or just a counsellor. You're across the board.
Well, so look at something like hypnosis or hypnotherapy. There's so many schools of hypnotherapy.
Yes.
And sometimes when people go, I tried it, a hypnotherapist, and the first thing is, well, what type of hypnotherapy were they using, and how good were they? Because in one class of hypnotherapists, you can have excellent ones, you can have average people.
That's right. Yeah.
So often people judge the therapy, not the therapist, but both are important. And then and same with CBT. There's so many schools of CBT, all different psychotherapies. NLP, was in sort of therapy terms is a fairly new thing. But now you've got classic code, you've got timeline, you've got new code, you've got design human engineering, you've got somatic NLP, you've got so many different branches and so many different schools within those branches. Yep. So I mean, and I would say that I think to again give people the full change. It's to work and I use this in broad terms. It's not always true, but as I say, most psychotherapists deal with the history.
Yep.
Most forms of coaching, traditional coaching, deal with the future, deal with planning, and then the kind of mindfulness, meditation stuff deals with being in the now. And I think really to be rounded, you need to deal with the baggage from the past, not in a kind of constantly revisiting way, but in a way that can let it go and change those patterns. You need to learn how to be comfortable in the moment, and plan for the future. What is it you want? What goals do you want to get?
Absolutely. I love that. That's such a good way of explaining it.
Yes. So, and again, and most schools, and certainly most traditional schools of psychotherapy would say they would deal with the past and they would deal with it in one very specific way, like, we're going to talk about till you finally get a realization. And one, that could be very long-winded, and two, it often doesn't work.
That's right.
Again, it's intellectual understanding of the problem rather than emotionally changing the problem. But everyone's different as well.
It's conscious mind work, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, sorry. I love that the past, the present, and the future. Because what I've noticed is that you can do all the triggers in the past, and yes, they can have. If they don't have a real clear direction about where they want to go, they need something to replace that. Obviously, that healing or that void that's been. So they need an exciting destination of where they're going, where they're becoming. They also need the strategies in the day to day, because when they go back to their workplace or their family members, they go back to a family reunion, and the old family members remember the old person, or they go back to work and there's the old boss treats them the same way, and it just reminds them of the old person, which they've healed, they've changed, but sometimes those anchors in work and with family can push people back into that kind of dysfunctional reality that they were in before.
Yeah. So, but going back to books, I mean, I think sort of introduction books. Waking the Giant Within is a good way to start. By Tony Robbins. I personally like him. I mean, he splits the coaching thing down the middle. He got me into it. He's very good, and his philosophy has evolved. And it is actually, if you look at his strategic intervention work, his more modern stuff, it's very Ericksonian. I mean, he used to be much more change in the moment. Now he's about more group change and things like that. And he inspires a lot of people. So, but it's definitely if you don't like the loud American, then reading his book, you don't quite get the same thing. But Waking the Giant Within is a good one as a starting point. I think, what NLP books would I recommend? Sue Knight's, for business, Sue Knight's NLP at Work is a good one.
Oh, okay, great.
She was one of the first, I don't know if you get it, she was one of the first authors in England to write about NLP when it was...
Sue Knight. definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she's very good. She does a very sort of person-centered way of NLP. So it's not necessarily about techniques. It's all very conversational. So I really like her style as a therapist and coach as well. Don't she call herself a therapist, but so she's very good. I mean, again, there's so many books for trauma. I would recommend The Body Keeps the Score, which is actually one I've just read. Yeah, and that's very good for trauma. And I mean, and it's not exactly true, but a simplified version is a trauma is a more extreme version of a phobia. It's a trigger from the past causing emotion. So that's a very useful one as well if you want to work with phobias, I think.
Outstanding.
And that's the guy's whole journey, because he started off as very conventional in the 1940s as a typical psychoanalyst, and then developed his skills over time. And then in the 60s, when medication was the way, he was like, oh, this is the holy grail. And then he realized that it wasn't all the answers. And then it goes all the way through to the sort of, I mean, he's a traditional psychotherapist, so it's more mainstream stuff, but he does touch on EFT techniques. He does talk about EMDR techniques, which is the eye movement ones as well. So that's a good one. I mean, I could go on all day. So
I love this. I think this is great.
I mean, if you want to learn NLP stuff, I mean, I would recommend probably reading, the greats. Although the
Structure of Magic, or is that
Structure of Magic? I mean, they're hard reads is the only thing.
Yeah.
So maybe some of the newer stuff they bring. I mean, I would recommend, if you're into it, Whispering in the Wind as a modern book, but it's John Grinder as a linguist, not a
novelist.
No novelist. So be prepared. But there's so many, and it just really depends on if you want a surface kind of view or you really want to get into it. So I could, I just hang on one sec. I'll scan my bookshelf.
I love it.
But because I tend to be out walking the dog most of the time, I actually love audiobooks. So if I can get it on,
right?
Yeah, I like to listen actually to learn, because then I can. Because although it doesn't always go in quite as well as reading, I like to be able to look at the horizon and learn it. For me, that kind of anchors it better. But I think nowadays with Audible, most of the later books you can get on audio. I mean, the older traditional books. Yeah, I mean, the Paul McKenna books are very good. I mean, they're very kind of simplified. I don't mean that. They're very user-friendly sort of ways of explaining NLP. But I quite like his model as well. I shouldn't. Whether
Paul McKenna. He's. I don't. Is he someone famous from England? I guess.
Paul McKenna. Yes, he's very. I mean, he's big in America as well.
I've heard the name. Yeah.
Yeah. He works with the other co-creator of NLP. He works with Richard Bandler.
Oh, Richard Bandler, right. Yep.
Yeah, and when in England anyway. Paul McKenna used to have his own. He started off as a stage hypnotist.
Oh, yes.
And he used to have his own hypnotherapy show, and then he got into more personal development, and then he started working with celebrities to do that. So he's written a lot of books. I Can Make You Thin, I Can Change Your Life, and they're all variations on a similar theme.
So it's very accessible, user-friendly, and niched in with all that knowledge. Yeah.
Yes. I can help you quit smoking. I think hasn't done a flying one, so that's good. But yeah, I think it depends. If you're an academic, you probably want the more going deeper into the neuro. I mean, and some of the neuroscience ones are good as well. Now, because it explains a lot of what was, when this stuff first started coming out, it was seen as quackery or whatever.
Neuroscience definitely.
A lot of how the brain stores information and things like that. So
I found Joe Dispenza. He sort of really, because it was kind of like woo-woo stuff, and he kind of did a lot of brain scans on people and put a lot of the science in explaining how our thoughts affect our blood cells. Even right down to our cells. And he did a lot of the real in-depth scientific research and documented it, which kind of took it from the realm of magic to I can understand how it works. And and beyond that, I mean, I think it's in The Body Keeps the Score. It may not be, but if you read it's not there. I apologise, but there was someone talking about the shamanistic chanting. So they would chant and they would heal, and then kind of obviously Western people would go,
sure, that works. How does singing help? But they were talking about how the I'm trying to think of the name now. There's a nerve basically in the body which is in the gut, which is why a lot of people who have stress problems have stomach problems as well.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
called second, often referred to as the second brain, because there's actually neuro connections in the stomach and in the
Wow.
heart. So they are so often, and again, so often in the past, psychology, psychotherapy was all about trying to focus here, and it's actually the whole body.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. Amazing.
But going further than that, with the shaman, they were saying certain tones actually vibrate the nerve. I've forgotten it now, but if I remember, I'll let you know. And it actually does have a healing effect, and they've kind of measured this with sort of neuroscience now. So again, these things that were 3,000-4,000 years old and seen as just beyond rational. There is now kind of explanations for why that happens.